All right, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call.
Okay. Schultheis here.
Anderson here.
Eleanor Sir here.
Dolnick here.
And other officials in the audience.
Bob Daniel, Assistant Finance Director.
Mark Roscoe, Director of Public Works.
Corson, Maggie.
Richard. Gio Hilton.
Okay. We have a quorum.
Great. All right, so we're here to discuss the discussion about capital improvements for the tourism district and the funding sources.
How do we want to start? Bob started.
How about, well, I think maybe, I don't know, how do you guys want to back into it, like as far as like the financial part of it, and then talk about the project, or should we do the project?
Do you want to give an overview right now?
Right, so it's my understanding, and I apologize, I have not had access to my email, so I don't know if anything's been sent out that I haven't seen, but it's my understanding that our meeting today is to discuss the funds that are sitting in an account that cannot be obtained by anyone. They're funds that were not claimed by other hotels throughout the last couple years, I guess would be the way to say it. And so we were proposing the idea of taking those funds and utilizing them for whether it's beautification or other opportunities. You know, I know the way our tourism district is broken down right now, we fund police 42%, I think. You can correct. 42.5% goes to police, and then 10% goes
15 goes to
or
beautification.
15 beautification, and then the rest of it goes to the hotels. So I think the idea is that the money that has not been claimed and that's sitting in this account, we talked about possibly utilizing it for additional beautification. And that was extensive, the conversation now, whether we wanted to use it in other areas, that's up for discussion. So, I don't know if that's
Also like safety too, correct, with the lighting?
Right. If I could add in capital projects, stuff that we normally wouldn't do in beautification, but if I think today kind of the idea was to identify projects and things that would make a difference, and then how that direction would get put into play.
I know you mentioned, I think you mentioned the island, you mentioned around the bridge.
So I have a list of things put together
Okay.
of topics we've covered in the past years that I recall, and things we just talked about in the last meeting. It was December when we sat down and meeting. And it's not an all-inclusive list as we talk through things. If there's other things you want to talk about in there. My take on it today was kind of an idea day. Obviously, you guys handle the financial end of it, and I'm the middle of it. As to different projects and what the next steps would be to get something that we can give the council saying, we've talked about this, this is our estimated engineering cost, this is our first step, what do you think? We're coming into putting together our budgets for this year. Departments are all due pretty much today, and next week we're going to be going through the first stages of them. We currently already have a tourism budget that we work from, and part of this conversation would be adding things into that. It's a good time of year because we're going into that season. We know we're not going to spend any of this money tomorrow, but if we can get something on the plan, whether it's for fiscal year 24, 25 coming up, or they're bigger projects that we know that if we want to get a shot at them, they're a multi-year impact. Things that we do in the area of Milwaukee, I mean, a lot of it is permit required. So we have to go through the process with the state or whoever's the other players involved. So it's not just, let's buy this and stick it in the ground. So that's kind of my take on it. I'm going to start with ideas on projects, or you want to another direction anywhere first?
So,
Well, maybe before we start on the project, just so that we're all on the same page, because it has been since December, and I don't think we had a firm number. Do we know what the amount is that we're talking about?
all they have from December is that it's 571,000 in the fund balance to be used. And we voted on or questioned? Yeah.
And this is just a recommendation to go to the city council. They have to
Right.
approve this. So
Correct.
that's why we're having a
Correct,
special meeting.
right.
But a couple of questions that I had just for clarification. Is this, first I'll start with, I assume we want to have a reserve. We're not going to just
Correct.
try to access everything that's in there. And
As part of this meeting maybe too, is to talk about.
exactly, that's why I wanted to bring that up. My other question is, are we requesting like a one-time access to this, or is this something that we would revisit annually, or is this, this is one of the things I want
Right.
to discuss.
So my recommendation would be, because obviously we're talking about more or less rewriting the bylaws or amending the bylaws, right? So my suggestion, and obviously whatever else thinks is really important as well, but my suggestion would be, instead of us having to reconvene these meetings, that, we figure out a time frame of what, if something's not claimed by said time,
Right.
then it moves over, so that we don't have to have these meetings, and that also we don't have a $500,000 sitting in an account for no reason, that could be utilized in a lot of other areas. That would be my suggestion.
And I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we have to kind of be real specific in what we're
Right.
requesting for this. So
Right.
that it gets a little complicated that way, but yeah, I would agree with you.
Well, I would assume that the attorney could put some verbiage together that would amend the bylaws to accomplish what we're talking about. I don't know how that works, but.
Can it be on a separate meeting agenda item, since it's not regarding like the reserve and how much is gonna go? Because today it looks like it's just talking about the capital projects that are out there that can be done in this area. And then in a separate meeting, you might have to bring that topic up about how much is gonna be left in the account, how much is gonna be used,
Right.
that type of thing.
If I could add to that, I think we're all on the right track with it. From the spending part of it, with other things we do, anything we do as a project-wise over a certain value needs to go to the council for a resolution. So even if we were to say, we all agree that $50,000 for this is a great project,
Right.
it's still going to end up, even if our bylaws say we can do it, because it's money coming out, going out, it's still going to have to go through.
Of course.
Our city attorney's going to make sure that we follow the right.
Yes.
um,
I was just thinking, avoiding this step of it, I know that it's a multi-step process, but it's hard to get everybody together as it is.
And I don't think, because we're not making the final decision, I think we can just put together what we want to present to the city council, but yes, but I don't know that we can actually, make our own numbers today. I don't know if we have enough information. We don't even have enough information.
Again, I think the meeting was to discuss, like here, like what Mark had proposed, here's some ideas, projects that could be done in this area. And here's what potential costs could be for these projects, and timeframes and timelines, and who you gotta talk to get some of these projects working.
And I think our timeline is good because our next scheduled tourism
March 1st.
is just a month away. Council meetings come up twice a month. So I think slipping this one in is probably a really good idea.
Mhm.
To get talking about things.
Is all the money that's in there now, is it possible for, let's say, a hotel to then say, no, we want to reclaim some of that money for,
I think because the timeframe is gone, they might have to come in.
so that's
a meeting
true
and talk
money and
about
then,
it.
okay,
Yeah,
that's,
but I
can't be taken.
believe because of how it's written, you have a certain time frame to
Yeah.
request that money. But that would be, I guess, on the board to make a decision. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I forgot all about this stuff, is there
So
a chance?
we've gone through, and I'm gonna sound not nice for a minute, and I don't mean it, that's the way it's gonna sound, but all of the members have been members for a long time, and we've given them countless reminders of you know, come, make sure you submit, you know, and they don't. And, they're copied, I'm assuming they're copied on that email that you send out all the time, Karen, correct? About
Yes, no,
make sure
we
you
did have an
submit.
issue where it stopped going to you for a while, Maggie, but
Yeah.
then we reinstated it.
Yeah, but so, to my point is that, we've, I think the board and I think Karen, like the village, I think everyone has done their part, and it's the responsibility of the hotels to do their part, and they're not doing it, and so therefore, that's kind of where we are, and I think Sherry and I had talked about this way back, and you guys can correct me because you've been there, is that we were a lot more flexible a long time ago, and it didn't really matter, you know, and so then finally we were like, okay, if it's not in by this date, and it's not done, then you lose that opportunity.
Gotcha.
Because for you guys too,
Yeah,
like, you
yeah,
know,
it's
you're
easier to
sitting
get across,
there, you know.
try to get things paid and
Yeah.
taken care of, and
Yeah.
What about in case someone came back or you had someone that happened? Maybe that amount that was available goes for 1 year, and that's what's held into the account. The rest is all used.
I don't know.
I don't think.
Because I
I'm
thought
not
we-
real screwed on the bylaws and what you have, I don't know what's in the bylaws that we have.
Are we deciding to
Some-
hold a certain amount
Come
in
back.
there?
We talked about having a
A
reserve, but
reserve,
my
yeah.
point though is that, I mean, we're all adults, and
Well,
we're all, like,
yeah.
we've laid it out, and so it's like, to me, it's one thing if there's new people, and we need to re-explain it to new people, and for them to choose to get on board or not, but I think to hold it for a year is way too long.
Well, I was looking at that as a reserve fund,
Yeah.
but that's all.
I was just gonna say, first of all, I agree with you, you guys have done a great job of letting them know repeatedly, but if we're changing or adding something to the bylaws, and I don't know exactly what they state currently, but I still think that we need to put some kind of a time frame. Even if it's less than a year, we have to spell out specific things. We can't just say, look, we've given you plenty of notice. We have to spell out exactly what we're doing. And we can, at this meeting or the next, we can discuss timeframes and specifics, but all of that we need to kind of figure out and spell out exactly. And then all of this would have to go through the city attorney and
Right.
take a look at all of this.
Okay.
And we may have actually covered this topic a few years back in black and white with I remember us having this specific comment and conversation. I thought we had a resolution which was too bad, so sad.
Yep.
Wasn't it
I
at the
mean,
end of like the year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the year ended, there was a window of time, so we weren't worried about somebody saying we need to go back 4 years for the funds. And even if the current players involved that aren't doing it, the fund balance isn't going to be that much for them.
Right.
We're not talking about somebody's waiting on $100,000 to pay this year.
Yeah.
We're talking about smaller amounts that would be manageable with a reserve, a decent reserve, so. But finding out if we had something locked in on that, again, miss it, forget. There's a window of time and no one's gonna go backwards. So, again, not to sound mean.
Yeah, and
just
that's not my
straightforward.
intention, but I mean, it's
Right, I'm
just,
with
you know, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that'd be a good agenda item for the tourism meeting on the 1st, so we can actually review and see if there was something about that. And look at what the bylaws exactly state.
I was just gonna say, I want to look at those.
Just to have, and then we have it on the agenda and we're, so if anyone out there is missing out on it and they look at the agenda, it's another flag that, hey, maybe I should show up or not.
All right, well then I guess we should go ahead and just talk about your list that you have going
Yeah.
there.
So, sorry. Thank you very much. You got one back?
No, so
I need one back, sorry.
All right, well,
anybody got one?
There should be just enough. Yeah, each.
Okay.
Could you please pass this over to Karen? This is, if you guys could kind of The two shared copies. The pictures, I just couldn't pummel out a dozen pages of color pictures. I just like cheap at some point. The pictures, we'll go to those in a minute. Okay, this is the list of items that I know we've talked about over the last years. There's probably a few more, like I mentioned, we can always add them in. And some of these you might not even like. But it kind of gives us an idea. We'll just kind of go line by line, briefly overview everything, then we'll come back and talk details. Apple Winkleman street lighting. We talked about this when we did Winkleman repaving. Addition of street lights, 2 of them on the corner of Apple and Milwaukee Avenue, right around where the Holiday Inn is, around the curve there, to light that area up. We'd like to go all the way down to Plaza Drive, but at the point we did this a few years ago, we decided just to stick with a target of 2 lights for there. And then 5 of them down Winkleman, lighting up from Milwaukee Avenue down to the city limit at the end of the hotel properties.
It's red. No, nothing.
Oh. So, and then we had costs involved from a few years ago, added a little bit of inflation cost to them, talked to our engineer just as a ballpark, and we come up with that $172,000 to $195,000 to do the project. If this is something we're interested in, there's a phase 1 of design, which ECC is engineers cost, basically what we believe the construction might cost, around 10 grand to get blueprints and designs and make sure it fits in with what we want to do.
Did we not do that? I feel like we did that already.
We did, but it was in 2020.
So they have to redo it.
So I think we need to adjust it a little bit.
Okay.
And the engineer that did that for us, I'm sure we have a copy of it, but he passed away, so we're losing a little bit of that information. But I know I have some paper copies of it. So that's kind of a ballpark on the first line of lighting. The photos I gave you guys, the first page shows the Winkleman area. The second page shows the Apple Drive, where the targeted 2 lights would go. The dashed lines on that kind of show what our original plan for power was, where we would have to get it from. The Apple Drive, there's a couple other choices because there's power poles in the area, but when we did it back in 2020, I remember Pat Glenn, our engineer, was having conversations with ComEd. I think it came back to going off of the controller, which is the dash by Rocky Vanders, where we already have a meter, a power handoff from ComEd. It was just to run the pipe down there was cheaper than building a whole new structure out. Or on Winkleman, we don't have a power source, so we have to put in a meter housing and a controller and stuff like that. So just not to get too into the details, but that's kind of that. Second page, third page, sorry. We talked about entry signs last meeting, and I know we've talked about it in the past. The desire to announce that you're in Prospect Heights. Locations that have been talked about for years. One is down by Kaiser Animal Hospital, right where the city limits start, across from the Lutheran Church Charity Building. And the other one is up near the Ramada, at their entrance by the airport. So the picture, my idea that's on there, I'm sorry I'm not the best at cut and paste artwork, but again, I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I'm not, I didn't hire somebody to do the graphic work here. But the picture that's on there is our existing city sign that we have by the Chase Bank on 83 and Euclid, and also at Schoenbeck and Palatine Road. I added a little tourism district sign at the bottom of it just because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
I didn't think anybody would be opposed to it. The Prizer location in all initial views looks like it shouldn't be a problem for anyone, for IDOT, for permitting and stuff like that. I imagine it go fine. And we can get it far enough off the roadway where we feel it's in a good spot. The one up by Ramada, there's a little more concern about where we can put it. Our city limits end right in the Ramada parking lot. The very northern point of that is actually where the city limit is. My proposal would be north of that, a couple 100 feet into Wheeling, technically city limit, because it's a better spot to put it. There's more turf, we can put the sign a little farther back. And if we put it too close to the Ramada, we're gonna have a problem with their customers, residents, anybody pulling out and having basically a billboard that blocks their line of sight to traffic that's already doing 45+ miles an hour. So we don't want to create a hazard. So the best spot on our city map doesn't really match the best thing for the community. So if we decide to go along this path, I'll work with IDOT, our engineer, and Wheeling to say, hey, we need to go a couple 100 feet into your turf.
I don't think about there.
I don't think so, but it's
Yeah.
just, it's something to talk about.
I like the
So-
placement of it.
I truly like these signs. I like the way they look, with our revamp, the new city logo and stuff. The next pages, if you guys don't mind, there's a couple other options. Displaying just farther down the road as a single monument. And those are better designed for highway type roads because of the snow plowing aspect. And a plow truck doing 30, 40 miles an hour creates a huge windrow of snow, and when it hits a larger city sign, it does damage. And it can create more of a maintenance issue on it. Except these aren't as visually appealing. They're there. We've all driven past this one, I'm sure, on River Road, it's just north of Maryville, and we probably don't see it that much.
I was gonna say, don't
Okay.
even notice
Yeah.
it.
So, in the functionality part of it, on the public works side of it, this is a better choice for a high-speed road that's gonna have big plows throwing a ton of snow onto it. For the other part of it, I like the other style better, but I wanted to talk about it, so we had this open conversation. If you flip to the next page, it kind of, again, my bad, cut and paste, but, so, just a few ideas. I particularly like the larger one better. We've seen the Wheeling signs. They have the wagon wheel design with Wheeling across. Their design has a lot of open space to it, so the big steady snow plows, the snow actually can go through a certain point. There's an advantage to that. There's many communities that have similar to ours with a large stone pop, columns and a big panel. So we know if we do that, we just might have more maintenance costs on it.
There's one that I've seen, well, let me back up. Do any of these have power in them as far as lighting or anything, or they're just standalone signs?
These are standalone signs. I don't have a price, it's a good point, I don't have the price on a solar addition to it. Wheeling just redid the one across from the airport, and there's a big solar panel there. Actually, you see the solar panel more than you see their sign. It's a little obnoxious, but I'm gonna guess it's probably around $5,000 a sign to do a good lighting on it. So, with solar, with commercial power, it could be a lot more,
Yeah.
20, 30 grand to get a power source there, a meter, the handoff, all the extra happy stuff.
There's a sign, in Mundelein, they have and it's on 176, so it's a pretty busy road. And it's similar in the sense of more monument looking than the first one. It has a little bit more appeal to it because and you can actually notice it more, where I feel like this sign blends in because of the shape of it. I have no idea I'm just bringing it up as an idea, of one that might possibly look, it's an attractive sign, but it does light up at night, so I don't know if that, what that pricing would look like on something like that. I do like the first one, I don't have any issues with it, but if you're saying that it's gonna get destroyed, I don't know if it's a good.
It has more of the possibility. The other two that we have currently, the one at Schoenbeck and Palatine Road is set 25 feet off the roadway. Snow can't get to it. It's set back far enough, it's up on a little bit of a hill. It's a nice spot. The one we have at Chase Bank at 83 in Euclid, even though it's close to the edge, it's got a carriage walk, sidewalk, and then our sign is right there, But it's right after the intersection. It's backs right up to the parking lot. So the state trucks presumably drive slower because they're going through an intersection. The sign's right there, there's cars there. There's more stuff that they can damage. We're along Milwaukee Avenue, these two locations, there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's, hit the snow as fast and hard as you can and get it as far off the road as you can. There's areas we plow that way, that there's no obstruction. So that's the only
I mean,
functionality of
this is
concern.
attractive. I like your idea of that. What about if it's just bigger?
Yeah.
Right? And then, I don't know what that cost, did you have a cost for these type?
I'm gonna say about half of the other one. About 10 grand is the other signs. They're around $8,900 each. But I have to figure out that just for, we have to get design and engineering to get a permit through IDOT, put them on the right of way. So it's not our property, we can't just stick it where we want. So there's a little bit of added cost, but I'd say these are probably half. We're only buying one stone column. These are fake stone columns, and they have a 4x4 post in the middle of them that goes into the ground. They're required that way for breakaway in case there's an accident, that they will collapse. They look like massive stone pillars, but it's just the size of a mailbox post in the middle of it that's holding it up. And that's IDOT standards across the region. So we have a couple ideas. This is something I think is palatable for us to present to council. We do not have in our current city budget the plan to put these in our sign budget right now. This last year, we did the upgrade of the other two signs and just replacing the center panels because the original ones were wood, they were hand painted, and they were rotting out. And they were on the desire for 5 years to replace them until we finally did it this last year. So not to get too stuck on this one topic, if everybody's good with that as a review. Oh, and also, if you find stuff like now that one you like, I can even look around. And stuff.
I'll take a picture of it and send it to you.
I'm in, just if you have different ideas, my goal would be that the city logo would be in some way, shape, or form our current design with the color, the red, the white, the blue, and the logo on there, however it reworks. Des Plaines, they use a stone where they're carved into like a fake stone, but there's no color to it. I think ours has to have the color, it has to pop. So I'm open to ideas. Again, this is what we're doing here today. I have banners on here. We talked in last meetings. Our blue and our green traditional Prospect Heights banners are really
Not
taking a beating.
like, yeah.
So that's an easy one just to talk and pass over. And we talked about cameras and safety and things like that. There's 2 different ideas on here. I know that Officer Garza wasn't scheduled to come today, but as we talk about cameras, I actually might ask the deputy chief to meet with us to talk about it. The city has 2 different ways we deal with it. We have cameras. Again, I'm a support staff for the police department on this, so they're not mine. They're theirs, but we have our traditional city system with cameras. They're constantly recorded when there's movement. We have them all over town. There's probably 40 or 50 different camera views that we have. The majority of them are on the east side of town. And it all goes through our central server. As Officer Garza had mentioned last time, the flock camera system is the ones that do the license plate reading. They've become very popular, where they pick up on the license plates and they can see the activity of vehicles and things like that. The flock cameras also, if you buy their better camera at $4,000 a year, it does both. It does the full-time surveillance and it does the license plate reading. So different options. Currently, we have our traditional city system that we've been working on, and we have a few of these flock cameras that are just the regular license plate reader ones to replace our older ones that were not, weren't working properly. So to talk about the the way that cameras could impact the city system and the way they could help all the hotels in the tourism district. And the placement of them would be a good thing to have the police department's input on. They have one, on the corner of Apple Drive in Milwaukee. They have one, on Winkleman, or another one farther down Winkleman to cover both, or in Milwaukee Avenue in front of the Crown's entrance, or different things like that up by the Ramada, places that we don't currently have covered. Most of our city system is internal, the Piper Apple, Burning Bush area there. We have a great camera where our levee pump station is, right across from Rocky Vanders. The desire of that was to give us surveillance on our crucial pump system, but one of those views also looks out at Milwaukee Avenue towards the Holiday Inn. Saw a few years ago we got the helicopter crash because it went down the intersection. So I personally believe that it would be great to enhance what we have with all the catalytic converters, just in general. But again, I think that's our Deputy Chief Milo German is kind of he's the technology guy on placement and cameras, and I'd like to have his knowledge tapped on it. He's saying we should do this, and this. I can tell you all day long about streetlights, but the view that they'd like to see that would benefit the most would be coming from the users.
So I see that that's a yearly thing.
Mhm.
So if we only funded it 1 year,
Right.
who's going to keep funding
Exactly.
it, right? Or
Well, we would have to build it into our yearly budget. We'd have to look at,
yeah,
because you have your plantings, you have your, that stuff, and then we have to look at.
I'm just
Right.
bringing that up.
It's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, and
It's
then back
it's a
to
reoccurring
this-
expense.
same thought was on the lighting, which I think is a really important thing. But who maintains that? Who covers those costs
So
of maintaining the streetlights?
So the streetlights, if we were to go along with that, the city, we would maintain it.
It's part of your budget
as-
then?
As well
Or-
as, if a bulb goes out, it would be out of the beautification fund.
Okay, that's where
The power for the lights would come out of that fund also. The same way currently we fund the power for all the lights down the medians and everything, it would just be.
I mean, I
Yeah.
was just asking.
No, you're absolutely right. Improvements like that, that have some type of consumable would be funded out of it.
Do you have an idea of the cost of that
For the electric bill,
per? Yeah.
I don't want to quote you anything offhand because we're all on TV, but I can come up with an idea.
Idea of how?
Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering because it'll get added to our
Yeah.
budget, right?
It's
So-
not, if I recall from when we
Is it a lot?
originally did the
No.
install, it was not
I
a
can't see anything.
significant number.
I have no
Yeah.
idea, so that's why I
A couple
asked.
hundred a month.
Yeah. it's-
Oh, okay.
For
I
power
did.
bill.
Okay.
With the lighting, the big cost is the upfront.
Yeah.
I think it's
One thing that-
important, I just want to know what the costs were.
One thing that we do get into, not to sidestep too much here, but when we have accidents in the district, and they take out our light poles and our power supplies, stuff that we need to replace, Public Works does it. The funds come out of the beautification fund. Our city insurance company and whoever else needs to get involved, then go after the driver, the damaging party, get reimbursed, and that money goes back in. It's not a quick process.
Yeah, are you still trying to get money from the wall?
We're, yes, the wall is,
I'm just,
That's a whole nother
yes,
animal.
the damage to the wall is, luckily, wasn't associated to the tourism district, it was associated to the levee wall itself, and that's a different fund. So we're all out of the wall business
Okay.
on that. But we've had a couple, we've had a DUI that took out some trees and some power posts, which we're still trying to get reimbursed for. A month and a half ago, we had a driver take out the power control box for the whole northern end of the area. There's a power control box by Rocky Vanders, and destroyed it. So we had to get that replaced, rebuilt. So we're waiting on that claim still to go through. If somebody takes down one of our new streetlights, we'll be in the same game. the current streetlights that are there are all owned by IDOT. So if they have it, they go right after the drive. It's a different entity, so. But you're right, any improvements we do that have some type of consumable, or even some type of maintenance, the tourism district's gonna have to keep funding that going forward. The cameras, if we put in a couple of them at $4,000, next year, there has to be another $8,000 in the budget just for the maintenance and the service that those cameras provide. So, the difference between that is the maintenance on our regular city cameras is much less than the flock. Because once they get installed, powered, and transmitted into our system, it's just a camera. We're just accepting the signal and using it on our server, which is a little bit of an upgrade. The flock ones, we're actually using them as the server, as the provider. They manage the network part of it, so that's why they have our yearly fee associated to it. So that's kind of why I separated them on here, because it's two different animals, but it's the same goal, is how can we get better surveillance and what's the best bang for the buck. And again, not to defer, but to get like Milo, German, and our deputy chiefs to talk about it would probably be better, more educational for everyone on how they work.
Yeah, for
So, then that, we talked about, I got bridge enhancements. I have no idea what the cost on this is. I've asked around. It would really regard getting our city engineer to dig into it deeper. I didn't add pictures into the file on that, I don't think.
No.
But how I have the same pictures from years back,
Where we had like
the lighting.
the lighting and the
yeah.
word, like the
Welcome
word
to Prospect
Prospect
Heights.
Heights on the bridge.
Welcome to Lebanon, you know, whatever, or, I'm sorry, Lynchburg is the one, Lebanon, Indiana, different things,
Yeah.
just to kind of,
Show that one, because that was the one that everyone really liked, where it had,
something, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you've seen it, like, there's a lot of places that have it, it's like, it looks almost like it's like metal.
Yeah.
It probably is, metal or wrought iron.
And
lettering.
even,
Heading north into Milwaukee, they have.
Yeah.
yeah, even lighting underneath it, things that would just,
It's a disco.
Yeah, they do that in our city, where it's everywhere.
so, and again, the improvements to the bridge area, I don't have a cost on. I'm gonna guess it's out of our budget. This would take the lion's share of everything. But, again, it's a topic we've talked about. I don't wanna just ignore it. There's also, as I heard, interest from the airport as to if we're gonna do anything north of the bridge. The center median area, which is about 24 feet wide, that goes all the way from, basically from McDonald's,
McDonald's.
all the way up to, you know, Atlantic, if we had any plans to do anything there.
To extend, kind of like what we've already done.
Right, or, I haven't had the conversation, other than I was told that they're interested in, if we had a plan for that.
Do they want to help support it?
So, I had the same thought. Obviously, it hasn't been something we've talked about as a group. I don't have any concept for it, so I didn't put it down on the
Yeah.
list, but.
Personally, I think it would be really nice, because I do think we've talked about the disconnect, right, between where Wheeling ends and where we begin, kind of, and what that looks like. I think it would be nice, but obviously that's something that's down the road.
So we have.
But maybe the airport would be willing to share the
Yeah.
expenses on it.
That's something I'll start a conversation with them, just to see, hey, what are you guys thinking? We weren't planning it, but maybe.
We think it's a great idea.
Right. And Prospect Heights City Tourism District, Chicago City Airport welcome you. Maybe.
I like the way that sounds.
So, sounds like someone else's money, which would be great. So, that's another thing. I didn't put down here, one of the concepts we talked about, I forgot about it all about until yesterday was the island that we created by Players Pub, where we have the trees on there, and we did some outcroppings and some plantings.
The one on Milwaukee and the one on River.
Um, Both, it's more river.
Yeah, yeah.
It's right in front of the Players, that
Yep.
kidney-shaped island. We do not have electricity there to put lighting at that point. We had talked about that at one point, it was about 50 grand to put power into that island so we could do lighting there. Just another idea that I didn't add on to here. So this was kind of my top list of projects that we've talked about but never been past it, except for banners. We've done banners sometimes,
I think the banners make a difference though, personally. And they're not a huge expense. So I definitely think we should look at that for replacing the blue and green ones. I would love to see more, instead of doing the blue and green, I think that what we selected for the summer with the circles is really nice. And then like you have the ones with the trees, like something that's a little bit more, whether it's seasonal or just a little more decorative, I guess is what I'm saying. It catches the eye more.
absolutely. We're in the winter mode now. We have the holiday trees, the trees.
Kind of winter
trees,
trees.
yeah.
The winter trees. We then would go to the spring bubbles, I think is what we were calling them.
Yeah.
We go to the spring bubbles, and then around Memorial Day, we change to
The
the
flag.
patriotic on one side, and then the city blue banner next to it. And those blue ones are the ones that are up. In the past, they've been up for 12 months at a time. So the blues are the first hit. And then at the end of summer, we went to blue and green. And then around Thanksgiving, we went to trees. That's been the cycle we've been on. So
My suggestion is that we would look to introduce two more sets. One that replaces the blue and green, and then maybe one other seasonal one from like that summer to winter, or, you know, like what.
Like a
what is
fall.
that? Yeah, yeah, something like that.
okay.
That's just my suggestion.
I'm in,
What's
There
the
is.
expense of that again, for one new set? What's the
right,
expense?
about $4 grand.
Oh, that's not
So
too bad.
it- it's palatable for what we have going on.
And
that-
it's impactful. I mean, it definitely gives you, you know, and I sound like a broken record, you haven't heard me as much as everyone else, but, you know, we're contending with, when you talk about the Milwaukee corridor, you're contending with Wheeling, and they put out, you know, the summertime, they put those flower baskets, that look so nice, and Mark would kill me if I said we should do that. But you know, they always have something there that, and so then it's like you kind of, back when we started this years ago, the idea was to figure out a way to kind of keep that trend and make it feel inviting and whatnot. And so that was where my thoughts
Yeah, I
were.
completely understand, and I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
$4 grand isn't that
Right.
huge of an impact.
no,
So the impact that we don't see though is every time we change banners,
yeah,
we have to do work.
yeah.
We have the
The
labor,
labor.
bringing the guy out there with the bucket truck. We have many of the locations where it takes 2 or 3 of our guys because we have to bring out a full road closure for that lane with the arrow board, the cones, and the delineating traffic, so nobody hits our guy with the truck. So those are things, we replaced our lift truck a few years ago, and there's a few now that we can get to from off the road that we couldn't before. But obviously, the ones down the center, the only way to do it is to take up lane of traffic. So the labor part of it for me is getting it scheduled in where I can get the guys to do it and have the safety aspect of it.
So that'd be about 4 times a year.
So yeah, so if we want to put another, you know, let's say 80 grand a year towards labor, we can add baskets. Well, you know what I mean.
I'm just saying.
I agree that the impact that the banners make, and when you get into other areas that have flower baskets and it.
I'm not suggesting
It does
flower
make
baskets.
it does mean, I know where you're going. with
Yeah.
that. Just something, maybe it's something that you come up with.
Right.
Because it does make you feel like you're in I know this sounds weird, a safe area. Right?
It changes your perspective.
Because you feel like, oh, this is a
So-
welcoming place. I feel
Well,
safe
and we've
here.
come so far from what it was. I mean, we didn't have any trees in the middle, we didn't have any lighting. It
So I
was,
would-
it just
yeah.
collected garbage, like, I mean, we've definitely made some major impacts, and I just think we want to continue to enhance that. I mean, the biggest challenge, to be honest with you, is beyond the tourism districts. So you go from, you have that gap from where the Ramada ends to where Wheeling begins, and let's be honest, it's not very appealing, you know?
No, I
It's a-
agree.
and
It's
so
just like
So it's like
desolate.
you kind of need, you want something that kind of just, that's a very short area, and that like we just pick back up, you know, it's, I'm not suggesting flower baskets or Christmas lights to light your entire town, but,
And it's hard because we all want it to be nice.
yeah.
Typically, a few weeks before the big rock and run 4th of July event, I don't use the word burn, but we burn a lot of time with our guys cleaning up the Milwaukee Avenue corridor in areas that we normally don't touch. From the bridge at McDonald's there going north, we have guys out there weed whacking and picking up trash and doing work on the IDOT road that typically we wouldn't touch. We pick up big stuff, but I mean, we go in there and really try to clean it up and cut the shoulder back a little bit, because we know we're having a big event. We're gonna have thousands of people there for one day. But my crew and I also agree that, what about the other 300 days out of the year? What do we do? This morning, we have 3 guys over there right now picking up trash down the Milwaukee corridor, from our Palatine Road area down to the curb and stuff like that. In the last few days, somebody lost a bag of trash again. During the winter time, there's always some debris, but there's more. So we have 2 guys down there with hand pickers right now, cleaning up everything. Because we know that's an impact to everyone. You can have all the banners and
Yeah, it
baskets
doesn't
you
matter.
want, but if there's, 50-ounce beer bottles laying on the shoulder, it
Yeah.
still gives you the wrong feel. So, capital-wise, that's kind of things that I know we
I
glanced
saw your
over in the
signals, the traffic signals, is that correct? Are there a lot of accidents?
Have you ever tried turning left out of there?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So,
Yeah, you didn't talk about
so,
So originally, can I interrupt you for
Yeah,
it?
go
Just to
ahead.
educate her.
We're all here.
So originally there was, I got very excited years ago because Allstate was gonna put one in.
I could see
Because
that, yeah.
the traffic on Winkleman was unreal from coming off of Milwaukee going to Allstate. Now that Allstate's gone, obviously that's not a thing. And I would have ventured to say, oh, well then maybe we should talk to Dramati and see if they would entertain it. But their trucks aren't coming off of Milwaukee. They're coming straight down Sanders. So, it's not nearly as much traffic as it used to be, but it's still definitely, and I know we talked with Officer Garza about it and other people with the police department, turning left out of there is really tough. And it's not blind, but the people coming southbound on Milwaukee Avenue are coming so fast that it's, and there's no like real median area in the middle for you to like halfway get there. you
Yeah, I know, I totally
So,
appreciate
yeah.
that. I just asked, it's so close to the other line, I didn't.
yeah, it's actually, if you look at one of the last pages in there, there's an aerial view, that's the view of the intersection. I think that,
It's far enough
Like,
it's
down.
far enough away that
Yeah.
IDOT would consider it, because it is far enough back. It would be a shorter term light.
That's why a lot of this,
Yeah.
and for your
I'm just
point.
asking.
Well, no, it's valid. And what a lot of people were doing is they're cutting through your parking lot and coming out
I know.
over here and
I
turning.
know, I watched this.
So, to avoid the intersection
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
The volume of traffic definitely has changed.
Yeah.
With Allstate.
For sure.
The roadway past your property limits is not our jurisdiction. If they turned into a truck route, it'd be different.
Right.
And I don't know if that's something that we want to encourage.
No,
So,
that road would not be able to,
No.
to
This road would
support
hold
that.
that.
No.
and it's just residential down there and stuff. But if the road were being rebuilt, and look at the changes that happen around, the suburbs, if that road was turned into a large volume road, a traffic light at the end would be fine. But it's the two sides of the sword.
Yeah.
But I think that it's something that could be considered, but it's around, I got two different engineers giving me numbers of 250 and almost 350. So I said 350 because nothing's cheaper these days. But it would be something that we'd have to get into, having an engineering review, design, go through the IDOT process to see if they'd even entertain it. And then, Pam, we'd be funding it every year. Every traffic signal improvement that we do in town, somebody has to pay for. We did a similar project on Grand Road a dozen years ago, and we pay 33% of the maintenance on that light. I think Arlington pays a little bit. And there's different handoffs with it. So everything you do like that with traffic signals, somebody's got to.
Wonder.
Yeah. So
What is cost, right?
Yeah, it's right on.
Maintenance.
So that is the other topic. I looked around trying to figure out something similar, and Milwaukee Avenue at Hinch Road, where the Dam Inn little tavern is, it kind of similar. Hinch Road obviously is a little bit more traffic, but it's a three-way intersection with a forest preserve on the other side, which is exactly what you have at
Yeah,
the Wing.
right.
Just Hinch Road has a lot more volume.
Yeah.
I was trying to find something similar that would show another signal as if we did go to IDOT as a comparison.
Yeah, it's kind of like Milwaukee and Zenith Drive where Apt is.
Yes.
There are a lot of customers into Apt, but beyond that, it goes into a park, a Glenview Park. On the other side, it's a condominium, so it's
You're
not,
all around there,
yeah, it's not a lot of cross traffic, and it is a short cycle signal for something like that. It's not three-way, it's four-way, but still, it's mostly just Apt customers that
Yeah.
are in there. So it's kind of a similar,
And one of the things that, this is the bad part, one of the things that IDOT and agencies would look for is the crash data. They want to see that there's a reason
On purpose
for a
it,
change.
Yeah.
So if you don't have people getting into accidents and getting hurt, the data doesn't support the project. It's, so, but it's definitely something that we can talk about. On the other part of this, seeing that we're meeting next month, we're going to talk about the beautification budget, where we're at, and things like that. It's not on the agenda today, but it's on our next one because we're going into the budget season. So I think timing sets us up for a lot of things here. That's kind of what I prepared for today so far. Kind of looking for input and conversation.
yeah, these are all great projects. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of money, but as everything is, but they're all very worthwhile.
When the monies that we have sitting there, you can hit and knock.
I would-
Several
the
of
first
these
three,
off. First
yeah,
three, yeah, that's what
yeah.
I checked. The
Yeah.
first three, and then maybe possibly look at one of the set of cameras, maybe
Yeah.
the city one that is a little less. But then we have to see with our budget, can we support that with, because we
Right.
gotta do it every year.
Right.
And then how much is usually left over from this board, from this meeting?
Well, that's what the question would be for reserve, right? How much do you keep in reserve? That's something you have to bring up at the next meeting. Like, you want to keep as a reserve for contingencies, something happens. We had the whole COVID thing that happened. I mean, reserve would probably be helpful at the time. God forbid, it doesn't happen again, but.
So it has the first three on here. As the tourism board, number 3, the banners, a purchase on that can be made with decision by the board here. it doesn't need to go to city council. It's
It's not,
$4,000 or $8,000, we've talked about it. It falls kind of into our beautification area too.
Yep.
We gotta make sure that we're not over budgeting that for this current fiscal year, but if we are, we're only a couple months away from the next one, and we're gonna talk about the new number for that at the next meeting, so that's a slam dunk. The city entry monument sign, because of the value, we'll have to bring it up to council. That is something that, I can put together, the same as I presented to you guys with different ideas. I can't say what the council's take on is, other than my belief is they'll won't have a concern with it. It'll be a target that many of us have had over the last years. So, the lighting thing, there's probably only a few folks in council that are aware of even the conversations we've had in years past about it. So, I think that'll be a new thing that'll pop up to them. So,
it is very dark.
I do
but that's
think
just
that we might get some
my take.
support too from the police department as far as, particularly, I can't speak to Apple because I haven't paid attention to that, I'll be honest. But I can obviously speak to Wicomen, and
Yeah,
it's very
so
dark
Yeah.
there.
It's just dangerous
Mhm.
there.
And the Apple part of it, when we initially did it, we had talked about different ways, and the goal was to go all the way down to Plaza Drive originally, but to keep the numbers more palatable, if we could get at least the power in place and a couple of poles there, down the road, you can always add on to a project once you've got the initial groundwork laid. You get the trunk in, and then 3 years down the road, hey, we have the funding, we want to add 4 more, we can add 4 more.
So it keeps going.
You could keep going. Now, again, there is an economy of scale. It's cheaper to do it all at the same time than adding on to something. And if we're gonna do 12, you want to do 5 now, those next 5 are gonna cost, or 6 more, or 7. They're
It's
gonna cost
like in the
more.
whole area where the trees are at.
Mhm.
So, I mean, once you get to where it's more open, it's a lot, you can see a lot better, but.
You have a lot of vehicles coming in and out. Your parking lot lights are designed for the parking lot, for adequate lighting for the parking lot. This would provide lighting for the roadway, for the folks coming out of here, and that would be cross-traffic. It just, I think at my end, I agree it was a great idea. Years back, we talked about it, just time-wise with the road, it didn't work out. And then,
Right.
of course, the financial, we wouldn't know the difference.
I really like the idea too of partnering maybe with the airport to do that other stretch. And maybe that's something that we can fund along the way with some of our.
It is
with
something
the
that,
plannings and stuff.
as far as I recall, we've never talked about anything north of the bridge.
But it's
And-
just so nothing. I really notice it coming from out and like with the, it's just so nothing.
As the city, sorry, really old map, the tourism district ends right at the end of the Ramada. So anything past that, if the airport wanted to be involved with something past that, I guess that would be a different type of agreement. Anything north of Ramada. So if the sign goes where I want it, we'd have to do some type of little, I'm guessing some type of little legal amendment to things, just saying that we're funding something that's just outside the tourism district, but its purpose is to support the city and the tourism district. So it's just a smidge over the border.
I like the bridge idea and that you're gonna have that, but I think that's something you could do down the line if you get the monument signs, that would be a start, so you have some kind of sign down there,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
If these are, the monument signs and banners are, I just think something, they're very easy to like that.
If that could get done
I mean, look at how quickly we
right
got
away,
the
right?
old ones
Pretty
done.
quickly, I mean, within the year.
The monument signs,
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
the monument signs, the having them built and ordered and made like a 6-week project, they could be ready. Our delay on that's gonna be IDOT permitting and approvals through that state agency.
Understood.
That sometimes isn't very fast.
Really?
No.
Sometimes, I mean, but then again, for breakaway city entry signs like this, they're all over the area. So they may have an expedited process for it. I don't want to say that too loud, but it does work well in certain things, right? So that may be their little easy thing.
Would the length of the project possibly be for the lighting?
I'm gonna go probably at least a couple months to get the design and the initial layout. Depending where the last light are, whether we have to get involved with IDOT or not, I think my suggestion would be we just say just shy of where the right of way is, so we don't have to deal with an IDOT permit for that. 9 months. I think it would be a project that is palatable. On the flip side, there's a street lighting project that was done by Mount Prospect for Old Willow Road between Wolf and River. It just got wrapped up recently. I want to say it was going on 18, 19 months because they got rolling on it and then there was a delay of getting parts and equipment. The transformer from ComEd was also back ordered, and because it was just a street lighting project, it had no priority compared to new building and growth and subdivisions. So every project can have that type of thing, but
Who was that?
these don't
Hard
seem-
because of COVID still coming out of the thing being delayed from,
It could be, by just
like a supply chain thing?
supply chain. But I can't say how long prior to that they spent with their permits. It's a little different situation, but it's not that big. 5 streetlights and the power from ComEd. So,
So what
I
do we
don't
have
wanna-
to do to propose?
Well,
to
I
the
was just
city
gonna say,
council?
so do we, obviously we have our meeting
mhm.
in a month. Do we want to say that we propose that we'd like to entertain 1, 2, and 3? And then we can put some numbers together for what that might look like so that we can discuss it again
Yes.
at our meeting so that then we know what we want to present. Do we need to, the city council meeting is when?
It would be this.
They're the second and fourth Monday of each month,
Okay.
so they're 2 weeks every month.
Okay, so
Like the 11th or something, March 11th.
do we want to propose the distribution of the funds though before that meeting?
We would need to
Yeah.
before it's on a city council agenda.
Right,
But again, we can discuss that, but it would probably go through the city attorneys before it gets onto the agenda for the council to take action.
okay.
I mean, there are always instances where we can approve something pending attorneys'
Right.
revisions on this, but for the most part, they want our portion done and then the attorney's overview of it. And
I
then
guess my thing is does it make sense, and you would know best, does it make sense for the attorneys to get involved if city council is not gonna entertain it? Is it something that needs to be, hey, this is what we're thinking about, should we take it to this next step? Or do you think that getting the attorneys involved ahead of time is the right way to go?
I think if it's something that we think that is reasonable, that can be entertained by the city council,
Yeah,
I think we should go through those steps.
okay,
I don't see a problem with that, but it is something that takes time.
Yeah.
We can't just have a discussion and then say, okay, the next city council meeting,
right,
there you
right,
go.
right.
Usually, in my opinion, in my experience, I would say we finalize our recommendations the attorney would take a look at it, and then it can be placed on a city council agenda.
So we're not
When that-
looking at
when that-
presenting this till late March then, is what you're saying?
It could be the first meeting in March. I don't think we'll get it in February.
Do you have to post
And then-
though, enough time though?
We'd have to post enough time. We also, for an ordinance change, and for an ordinance, it's 2 meetings, so they don't just vote on the first meeting, so it would be,
Yeah.
if it was the first meeting in March, then it wouldn't be probably approved till the second, or unapproved till the second meeting.
Yeah, there's no reason to ask for a waiver of first reading for something like that. We do that if there's a time constraint.
Okay.
So at the earliest, I would say the second meeting in March, possibly even. the
That's
first
still
meeting.
before the budget is approved, or something.
Right. Right. Okay.
To be clear though, you don't ask first though about using these funds?
That's what I was asking.
You know, like, that's all, not about what the projects are, just using the funds first. Is that a step first? Or you need to have the projects in place?
No, I don't want to speak out of line, but I think we need to,
Have more of a plan, like.
well, we can have a plan, but we need to figure out are they going to approve the use of these funds?
That's, I think, the
Well,
first
yeah,
step.
that's what I was asking, like, so is
I'm
that?
sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's okay, so that's
Um,
why I'm saying, like, is that something
That's
that we
like
want
the
to
first
present
step.
in February of like, this is what we're considering, and then we can come back to them with a proposal?
Okay.
I
or-
think,
Well,
or
I think
don't
we
you want to
need-
do that in your March 1st meeting?
Yes.
Right.
Discuss
Yes.
all this, because I think
Right.
you're gonna discuss what you want to keep as a reserve, how much you want to use, what's gonna cost. And then
Yeah.
March 1st meeting.
Yes.
Exactly, that's why I was saying,
Present
yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
We need to kind of have a pretty,
It's gonna be pretty,
because this lighting project, I think you're saying too, is you gotta do an engineering cost.
Correct.
First phase,
Right.
and then you got a second phase, which could carry into the next fiscal, and then manpower and time,
So
other
the-
issues in the city.
The lighting project,
Right.
the phase 1, the design, getting an engineer involved, will get us the scope of the project with a better engineering cost, but it'll also help give us a time frame on projected delays, impacts, if other agencies need to be involved, if for some reason there's a problem with the wetland delineation for the tip-eared bat species that only likes black arms on a silver post versus a white post with a red top. There's, the engineers, it's amazing the different things that come up with. And we can get through that, but that's what that initial stage is, we gotta get them involved.
but we have a certain amount we have to pay them even to do that study,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
yes, and again,
So-
I apologize for misunderstanding your question, but this is one step in and of itself to request the city council to approve a change in the bylaws to use some of that unclaimed money.
And
We have to do that before we can approve
Yeah, let's,
any of these projects. It's not all lumped together. It's that one step first.
okay.
And as Bob was saying, we need to finalize exactly what we're requesting with all the details, and we talked earlier about how long we give them to request the claim. All of that has to be spelled out, and then that is presented to the city council, and it'll take a first reading, then
And it could possibly take longer if the council says, well, we want you to incorporate these changes, like, we want you now to go back to all the hotels and ask them again, do they want them? So you don't know what the
Right,
response is
right,
going to
right.
be. But typically, there's the first read, and then they vote on the second.
And then what the recommendation is for reserve,
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
Yes.
So,
and that stuff we would finalize at the early March meeting of us.
Yeah. Or the second meeting in March, because you're talking about 10 days from the first. I mean, if you, unless you come up with a decision on March 1st, hey, this is what we want, this is what we're presenting, and then you go to the March 11th meeting, that's March 11th, I don't know what the meeting is, second Monday is.
And our-
Then council could, like you say, hey, can you talk to all your other hotels, are they on board with this too? Even though they don't come to meetings, they're not here, but I think they're gonna probably want them to be part of it, or give them notice, hey, let you know this is coming up, and you need, are you willing to participate, if, you know, if there's a time to talk, if not, then you have to bring that back to the board and say, we notified everybody, they did not respond, and then the board will make a, you know, decision based on just that. It's a long process to do all of this.
Yes, March 11th and March 25th.
We have our meeting on the first, which
Yes.
we'll get into our budget and stuff like that. I've preliminarily gone through what we've spent. Again, it's not on the agenda today,
Right.
but I won't get into the details of it, but I've looked at what we spent, where we're at, and I've projected what I believe we're gonna be. So I just submit a preliminary budget for it. And then we can we're 30 days away from our next meeting, so as we go through that, we can make changes and stuff. And I just want to tell the finance guy I'm not sure about the numbers yet. So it's pretty much the way I do it. Oh, sorry, Tom. So, but that's, I'll have preliminary numbers for him, and then as we make changes, one of our line items will then be what we project for capital projects that we're going to do with the council towards, as a fuzzy number to move forward with.
And as far as the cameras, I agree to, if you can involve Deputy Chief Derman. I don't know if you won't, one of us can make a request that he attends one of our meetings, or we can meet with him kind of offline. But it should be part of, at some point, part of an open meeting discussion, so that everyone knows what we're looking at. And I'm not saying that that's in the budget right now either.
No.
It depends on that first step, but
I can reach out to him and ask him if he could attend the first part of our March 1st meeting. We'll have him just talk a little bit about that aspect of it, and then we'll cut him loose. He doesn't need to go through the rest of it.
exactly.
Just so we have that conversation. And then ideas for that. So. I'm sure you'd be more than willing. Because it's a benefit to everyone.
I think we can tell us we have that done. We can wait.
All right.
Exciting.
You guys have public comments?
Public comments?
No, I really like the projects that should, you listed out here, and it's gonna be beneficial, the lighting and the appearance of it. Let's move forward, and now if we can, I know we talked about the probably need to get the, city council to, but it's exciting, we can figure out ways to get it done.
We've been kicking around some of these ideas.
For a long time. I have a file that's about, not joking, this big, back when Mayor Hamler, rest in peace, but he had brought in this huge landscaping company, and we had, do you remember that? And we had like
Yes.
huge designs and, oh my God. All these wonderful ideas, but then you put a penny to it. and it's-
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah,
Until-
right.
Until you gotta pay for it.
Until you gotta pay for it. Sounds really good.
Okay.
So, all right, then, I guess we just need a motion to adjourn.
I move